Ladies and gentlemen, cinephiles and dreamers alike, cast your minds back to the 1960s, a decade when the silver screen was awash with the revolutionary fervor and boundless creativity. It was a time when the auteurs dared to challenge the status quo, infusing their films with a spirit of rebellion and existential wonder. From the French New Wave's raw, unfiltered exploration of human emotions to Hollywood's golden epics that redefined spectacle. In the 1960s, it was a transformative era where cinematic boundaries were pushed, genres were reinvented, and the world was invited to see a life through a new and vibrant lens.
Welcome to Movie Voyage Through Space and Time. I'm Sylvana.
And I'm Zach. This show takes us on a cinematic journey through every decade in which movies have been made.
Today's stop for the USS Movie Voyage is 1968 with 2001, A Space Odyssey. It emerged during a period of intense social and technological change. The 1960s were marked by the space race, the Cold War, and the burgeoning counterculture movement that questioned traditional values and authority. Directed by Stanley Kubrick and based on Arthur C. Clarke's story, the film encapsulated humanity's awe and anxiety about space exploration and artificial intelligence. Its groundbreaking special effects, enigmatic narrative, and philosophical depth pushed boundaries of cinematic storytelling. The film's impact was profound, influencing generations of filmmakers, igniting debates about the future of human evolution, and solidifying its status as a seminal work in science fiction and film history.
That was beautifully said.
Thank you.
Well, all right. So 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
Have you seen this film before?
I had not, and I'm very ashamed of that. As
no reason
a
to be ashamed.
self-described film bro, I think. I feel like it was a huge gap of knowledge for me. It's something that I had wanted to see for a long time. Obviously, I've seen other Stanley Kubrick films, but I had not seen this one. I don't know why. I'm glad I now did.
Yeah, I still haven't seen all the Kubrick films, but this one I had seen, and this is I don't know if this is maybe his most contentious film.
Yeah.
Most polarizing, but I know people that really hate this film.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I feel about A Clockwork Orange.
You really hate that film?
No, I don't really hate it, but I think it's really divisive in the Kubrick community.
Well, maybe
Kubrick
it is.
kids.
The Kubrick kids?
Yeah.
The Kubrick Kai?
Yeah.
I don't know if if I've noticed it being polarizing, but I have noticed, it's just a very challenging movie.
Yeah, that's true.
The subject matter is very difficult to watch very often. So I can understand if people just don't want to watch it, but maybe they think it is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just something they don't
difficult
really want to
material.
see.
Yeah, that's true. That's very fair. Well, how long ago did you watch it for the first time?
Clockwork Orange or 2001?
2001.
I saw it for the first time, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
So
And you haven't seen it since?
When I was a burgeoning young adult man.
Yeah, I was going to say. You still were pretty much an adult.
A burgeoning young adult.
Burgeoning young adult. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry about
I was a young professional.
Okay, yeah, exactly. We can talk about this a little bit more later, but do you think your impressions changed from the first time you saw it to this time? It has been 10 years. You have changed as a human.
I have changed as a human quite a lot, and I think that the major difference this time is that I paid attention to what people were saying. I think the last time I literally was just like watching and analyzing the visuals. And yeah, exactly. I was along for the ride. I really was I was so invested in like the illusion that everything, like even the apes at the beginning of the movie, like I wasn't seeing them as men in suits.
Yeah.
I was seeing them as monkeys or, apes that were learning to use tools and such. And it was just blowing my mind.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the best way to experience this film for the first time.
But I will say that seeing it this time and actually focusing on what people were saying and the interconnecting story of the monolith, it was a different experience. So I really enjoyed it again.
That's great. I'm super glad. So did I have any preconceptions coming into this movie? I think I thought that I was going to find it visually stunning. That obviously, you know, I know things about it. I know what other people have said. For example, I had remembered the fact that Steven Spielberg once called this movie kind of like the Big Bang for filmmaking, like future filmmaking. Like it was just like a big inflection point for a complete change.
Yeah.
And so I knew it was going to be like really important, really special. But I felt like I was not going to like or understand even the story at all. And I think I did more than I was expecting.
You expect, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I feel like I found the narrative
this time
threads a little bit more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, same. And I had seen it before, but I hadn't really paid attention to that stuff before. Yeah. So this time, actually focusing on that, it was there is more of a story there than I remembered.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of this being the cinematic Big Bang,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of agree. I really agree with that. I mean, imagine last decade. The best that decade had to offer, at least as far as we've seen so far, was Seven Samurai.
Yeah, that's right.
So yes, this movie has color and it has a leg up in that regard. Yeah, and it uses color quite effectively in many places.
Oh, 100%.
But more than that. This movie had amazing sets. Yeah. It used models and illusion so well. Yeah. No CG involved.
Yeah.
But still somehow managed to look psychedelic, and it was showing zero-G people, zero-G spacecrafts rotating and translating in space, zero gravity, all while like the background is also moving. How did they achieve all of that except for with models and just very rigorous work ethic?
Well, I was thinking about the fact that, our first movie obviously was Sherlock Jr., which was praised for its like new stunts and new creative work in order to like make something look like something else.
And I seem to remember that we praised that movie for it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That was only 40 years before this movie. So think about the jump there. It's kind of amazing. Also, I don't know whether it will happen again. I feel like I doubt it at this point, but I feel like nothing has shocked me more than the switch from the 50s to the 60s. Yeah. It was like we were like slowly moving up.
I know, they were getting slightly better.
Shot up all the way up.
They were getting slightly better every decade, and then all of a sudden the 60s arrived, and then bam!
Yeah, it was crazy.
That movie looks better than movies today.
Yes, 100%. It's crazy. So I understand the analogy of the Big Bang, of like, there was an increase, and then suddenly like everything changed, and he changed everything. So, had a lot of preconceptions. I feel like a lot of them were true.
Yeah. I mean, how, though? I mean, I understand that he's using models, and so that's going to scale with higher resolution scans of the original print of the movie. So there's no, like, re-rendering of old CG that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So it's all going to hold up. But the fact that it still holds up so well as to literally look like a modern movie and better than most modern movies in most places.
A lot while we were watching it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this shot would be on IMAX today.
Yeah.
Like I would see on IMAX and I would not bat an eye of like, oh, this was made decades ago.
No, it's not even that. I'd be like, oh shit. That's a good shot.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's crazy that it holds up so incredibly well. We'll talk more about this later. There's things that I feel like dated a little bit. But I don't think those are things that Stanley Kubrick could really help.
Are you talking about the chimpanzee suits?
That a little bit.
At the beginning of the movie?
At the beginning of the movie. And a couple other things. I think costume-wise, maybe. But that is one of the hardest things to not feel dated, I think.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you can film something about the future and make it in the 60s and it will still look like a 60s costume for the future.
Well, so I was going to say, kind of actually contrary to that point, I think the reason that Star Wars still holds up to me is because I didn't live in the 60s. So when I see their
Yeah, that's
hairstyles, and they're all like very 60s hairstyles,
Yeah.
I see them as futuristic hairstyles.
Yeah, I could see that. See,
I see they're Star Wars hairstyles.
Yeah, I
to me.
like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that is it for me. Like,
Okay.
I see the stewardess and the
Yeah, I knew that's
whatever,
what
and
you
I'm
were
like,
thinking of, yeah.
she looks so 60s.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
she couldn't look more 60s.
Well, no, that I think I agree, only because I don't think it was that it was too 60s for me. I think that, okay, so for anybody who hasn't seen it or doesn't remember,
Yeah.
the stewardesses on the Pan Am flight, what do you call it? I guess it still is a flight,
Yeah.
a journey, quest,
Yeah.
voyage through space and time. There were stewardesses on that. I think I can still call them that because that's what they were in the 60s.
Correct.
Right. So I don't have to call them flight attendants.
I mean, you can, but I feel like that's
I
actually the
refuse-
wrong word for this.
I refuse to.
Okay.
And anyway, but they were wearing these weird, funky dome
Yeah,
things on their
yeah.
head. And I think it was to keep their hair in so that it didn't flap around in zero G.
Yeah.
And also so Stanley Kubrick didn't have to worry about making the hair look like it was flapping around in zero G.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, it didn't look so much futuristic as it did just kind of goofy.
Yeah.
But that was maybe the only thing to me.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But were there any other things, either costume-wise or makeup and effects-wise, that you thought didn't play?
I mean, like, it's so hard, like I mentioned. Like, it's like I remember thinking about, like, the men's style even looking a little 60s. Like, those exact type of suits that they were wearing.
Yeah, see, I don't
You
know.
know?
For some reason, that didn't knock me. Since it was creating a future that seemed like, yeah, we were technologically advanced enough to go out into space, but this isn't Star Trek, this isn't Star Wars.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
still very much grounded in our society, slightly futuristic.
I think that's totally
So
fair.
that didn't
I
bump
just
me.
think that the suits look particularly 60.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was, like, bummed by it or anything like that. I think it's, like, pretty normal and natural
Yeah.
for a movie to reflect its time as well.
But was that it, or were there other things?
I think that's it. I think that was it for me.
Yeah, but what did you think about the apes at the beginning? Did any of that play? Did it play a lot? Well, poorly?
I mean, I understand why it was there. I liked that as the intro to the movie.
Well, I mean,
You mean like the actual
effect-wise.
costumes?
Yeah,
It was as good as it could have been, I think.
yeah. How would you compare it to Planet of the Apes, which was also in this decade, I believe?
Yeah, pretty similar, I think. Maybe Planet of the Apes a little bit better, but that's also because
The makeup was better, you think?
I think the makeup might have been a little bit better. I think so. But I think it's also easier because the chimps in Planet of the Apes are supposed to be intelligent.
Right.
And so it's easier to, like, make sure that the makeup kind of reflects, like, a more intelligent looking.
Okay. So
Do you know what I mean?
I haven't seen those movies, but
Yeah.
I feel like I've definitely seen small either snippets or stills or something from it. And it, to me, I always got the impression that the movie seemed cartoony or silly. I don't know if the mood of it is silly.
Yeah.
But like the apes to me looked silly.
Yeah.
So
and
I-
you don't think they look silly to you for this one?
Well, I mean, I don't mean silly as in it didn't work.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was supposed to be a heightened reality. They weren't
Yeah.
supposed to quite look like chimps. They were
Well,
supposed
that's
to.
why I'm saying that it's easier for them to, like, get away with it because
Yeah.
they are not supposed to be just chimps.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be like an evolved form of chimp.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I have a lot of tidbits for you.
Sure.
Are you ready for them?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. I think you knew this, but the movie was almost entirely filmed in South England and edited in South England because that is where Kubrick lived.
Yep. Well, I only knew that because at the very end of the movie that's what it said.
Yeah. So, do you know anything about why he moved to England? By the way,
No.
he was a born and raised New Yorker,
I think I did know that. Yeah.
and then he was like, "Too much crime here, man."
Too
And
much
he
crime.
literally, that he moved away because of the crime. No joke.
Oh.
So he got a nice big mansion in the countryside in England, Chatsworth Mansion.
Well,
or something
maybe
like that.
maybe that's the way to go. That's what we should do.
Yeah, maybe. And then he decided to spend the rest of his life there. He barely left the manor for the rest of his life, maybe a handful of times.
So he became
recluse.
Flipping what's his face from The Aviator?
Yeah, yes. He really decided that he wanted to.
What's that guy's name? H.G. Wells, Hugh Laurie, Hugh Jackman.
I don't know.
Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes. Okay. I got it.
Okay, good. He basically was just living there and working there, and that's where his studio was, and that's where he did his editing. It became his whole life. That is why it was mostly filmed there, except for there were a couple of live action landscape shots. Yeah. In other places. Can you guess where?
Well, you had guessed Joshua Tree when we were watching. I believe the Grand Canyon. I don't know that I have any specific guess other than the American West.
Yeah, so I was wrong. It was not California. Okay. It was Utah, Colorado, though. Monument Valley. And the Hebridean Islands and Scotland.
Scotland!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the mountains of the Highlands.
Of the Hebrides? The Outer Hebrides?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So Scotland gets a look in a Kubrick movie. I kind of love that.
That's right. I thought you would like that.
Hagul Akam Autumn? Orst.
You love me.
I
love you too. Okay, yeah. Isn't that interesting?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have more tidbits.
By the way, I'd like to put a little bit of context out for the viewers and listeners, because I also wanted to watch some behind the scenes stuff for this movie. And Sylvana here literally said, no, you're not allowed to.
What?
Because she wanted to be the one that gave
that's true. I did. I was like, what? You're accusing me of something? Yeah,
and then you
I
actually literally did that.
I did do that. Because I wanted to be the one informing you.
I know.
Yeah.
What is that, like a power dynamic thing?
No, it's because I want you to learn with our viewers / listeners.
I see. I see. And I have to be the learner, and you get to be the teacher.
Well, we can switch every once in a while. I said that yesterday, and you did not listen to me. Anyway,
I was just too late at that point to watch the stuff.
Okay. We can watch the stuff still.
Yeah, true. Anyway, but you get to teach me.
Beforehand. I get to teach you. There's more stuff, like the fact that Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke hated each other. Oh? Despised each other.
Whoa, I would never have guessed. Why?
I don't know. So originally, I guess it was Kubrick who approached Arthur C. Clarke, being like, I really like your writing. Yeah. Let's do something together. They were supposed to both write the novel together first.
What?
Yeah. And then they were going to make it into a screenplay that Kubrick could use. Okay. It ended up being that it was mostly just Arthur C. Clarke that wrote
the book. Yeah. Well, he is a novelist, so.
Right. And Kubrick hated that. So at every moment, he tried to replace him with somebody else.
They would try to replace him for writing the book?
For writing the book.
Screenplay?
And the screenplay. He wanted new people. He approached a bunch of other science fiction authors. And the only reason it didn't happen is because the other science fiction authors were like, we can't do that to Arthur C. Clarke. That's like so mean. we literally won't take this just because he's going to be so offended and we can't do that to him. And he's a great author.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've made it. When your reputation is that ironclad where people are like, what? You want to replace Arthur C. Clarke with me?
Yeah.
Nah.
No, you don't want that, actually.
That's the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Go back to Arthur C. Clarke and beg for him.
Exactly. So then they had to basically just get used to it. They never became besties, but they did produce something quite wonderful, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. I think...
Do you? Do you indeed?
I think the only other thing that I wanted to tell you, there's a lot more actually.
Okay.
I lied.
I was going to say there's a lot of text there.
Yeah. So one other thing is that originally they did want extraterrestrial life to be shown on screen fully. Like actual.
Well, they kind of did.
Well, like actual, like aliens.
Well, what does an alien look
costume.
Like? What does an alien even look like?
Then they talked to an astronomer, a renowned astronomer at the time. Yeah. And he was like, no, not everything that you do will look silly and bad. Like everything that you do to make an extraterrestrial look right won't be right because I don't think it will look like anything like that. so it won't be faithful to what it actually could be.
I mean, that's fair, but, Star Wars pulled it off. What about Jabba the Hutt? Big slug.
But, okay. well, I mean, it's just like, it's fantastically crazy. And I feel like for this, Kubrick wanted like an actual looking extraterrestrial that we could like find in 100 years.
Well, sure. Yeah. But I mean, they could be similar-ish enough to us that they could have limbs and eyes and things like that, however many they have and wherever they happen to be placed.
Yeah.
But they also couldn't. And at one point in 2001, they had those weird octahedrons, I think they were, that were spinning around, and they looked like lasery. It almost looked like a 3D version of the Pink Floyd album with the prism thing.
Yeah.
So I assume those were aliens. I don't know what else they would be.
I don't know, but I'm very glad that is the direction that they went, actually.
Yeah, well,
I don't think having actual start. I think it would have taken me out. I think it would have been like, well, this doesn't look real at all.
You mean if they had put somebody in like an alien costume or something? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was extremely the right call.
Well,
they decided to change from actually showing that to just showing about the intelligence of extraterrestrial life and the remnants of it.
Yeah, so I guess this movie is doing enough visually and creatively to be beautiful and mesmerizing and insane. Mm-hmm. And then the extraterrestrial life can just be left up to the imagination. Yeah. And so that kind of is riding the coattails of the intensity of all the rest of the movie. And we can just assume that aliens are whatever we
want them to be, and while still showing extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yeah.
So, I think it was the right call. Absolutely.
Yeah. I keep trying to think if they did do it. They don't necessarily need to have done it with a person in a costume. They could have done it with puppets and such, but then maybe it still just would have looked like a puppet.
Yeah.
That said, though, I mean, Yoda was a puppet, I think, in the first...
Yeah, and Yoda didn't look that good.
I disagree.
Well...
I think when they CG'd him up for the prequels, I liked him less.
Interesting.
Baby Grogu is a puppet, and I think he looks awesome.
Well, that's true, but this is now.
Well, true, but it is all just animatronics and such.
Yeah, I don't know.
And puppeteering.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. You might be right. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of half in that camp that thinks that just leaving that out and leaving it to the imagination is probably the right call. But that said, he did so much in this movie that was revolutionary and amazing looking. Yeah. I kind of have a hard time believing he couldn't have pulled that off a little bit. And in a way that seemed unique and... not like a stereotypical alien.
I get that. I think for me, it's just like so much went right. What were the odds that this was also going to go right? Like, I'm glad. I think restraint is a real skill in filmmaking, and I'm glad that this was what it came to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, speaking of that, obviously, Kubrick really, really from the beginning wanted to only communicate through visual, what he called visual and visceral imagery rather than dialogue. So how much dialogue do you think is in the movie?
Well, when we were in the middle bit, when we were following the guy who flew in on the Pan Am flights, and then he arrived at the station, and they were circling around, or they were around the moon, right? I think they were in the moon's orbit. And he had to give that presentation. There was a substantial amount of dialogue there, but that was kind of the most of it. There was a bit in the final one where the two astronauts conspired to shut down Hal and also Hal and Dave talking. Yeah, but not too much.
Yeah, very little.
Yeah.
I also like that.
There was a lot of dialogue in the beginning. We just couldn't understand it.
Of course. Do we think Denis Villeneuve is a 2001 Space Odyssey fan because of how little dialogue there is?
Yeah, I have to believe. I am almost 100% sure that even if he's not a fan of 2001, I have to believe. I think he probably is a fan, but even if he's not, he learned from it.
Yeah,
like that is exactly his style movie.
Yeah,
beautiful shots, not a lot of dialogue.
Yeah,
and each shot takes its time and is a piece of artwork.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think seeing and reading a little bit more about what Stanley Kubrick was thinking when creating this film really reminded me of a lot of what I've read. Denny wants to continue to do. So yeah, it was interesting to see kind of call back to that, because I feel like in between, it's been really dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
Our movies. So
I agree. And I like a dialogue heavy movie, but I also like a movie like this.
Well, me too. I'm just saying art. It's like Kubrick and then Sorkin and then getting back to the Denis Villeneuve.
Imagine if Stanley Kubrick was out there trying to hire writers to write a movie for him, and he accidentally gave it to
Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin.
No, that wouldn't work.
But what if he did? And what if he was compelled by law to make that movie?
No.
I want to see that movie.
It would be crazy. It would be crazy. Okay. Another few tidbits. Let's get through this. Okay. There was a 10-minute black and white opening sequence featuring interviews with scientists about what they thought about extraterrestrial life. And
it seemed like they left that in. They just cut out the visual.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, like, that premiered. Mm-hmm. And then after the first showing of the movie, Kubrick was like, never mind, I don't want that in, and took it out. Like, that was fully ready to go.
Wow. So I'm sure he watched it a million times and was like, yep, this is ready to go. Yeah. Showed it to people once, and then he was like, no.
Yeah.
That's so strange.
I know. So that was interesting. And then another thing is that he did hire a composer. I can't remember his name, but I hired a composer to do the whole film. And the composer didn't know that he cut out all of it until he went to the movie premiere and watched the movie.
I think I did know that one.
And was like, well, my music isn't in none of this. He's used only classical music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's all classical music.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I wonder what that song is from. I always assumed it was from the movie.
I guess this was basically his playlist, like Stanley Kubrick's playlist while writing and directing and doing all the things. Yeah. And then he was like, wait, like, I was inspired by it for
maybe
this
it'll
movie.
Inspire other people.
Maybe it will work well with the actual movie. So he decided to scrap the score and actually just go with his playlist.
So I will say that I think maybe the score was the thing that worked the least for me.
Oh, intriguing.
In the movie.
Tell me more.
I think that...
Wait, do we want to save that for later?
I mean, we can, but it's been brought up and it's relevant.
Okay,
I say we just ride the wave.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I liked the...
Yeah.
I thought that really worked for the opening vignette.
Yeah.
But for the rest, the music was okay, and at worst, I think it was boring.
Yeah.
What's that Swan song you were talking about?
Yeah, the Swan Lake song.
Swan Lake song. Yeah. I don't know that I'm a fan of that one.
Yeah, and he used it several times throughout the movie. It kept coming back. It wasn't just one scene.
Yeah. So I
get that.
I think that maybe for the rest of the movie, like, use that opening song because that's, I mean, it's become iconic.
Yeah.
And I think it played really well. But yeah, for the rest of the movie, maybe he should have used the score.
I am intrigued to see what it was.
Also, why didn't he tell him?
I don't know. Maybe he just forgot.
He showed up to the premiere still thinking his music was in the movie.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that so disappointing?
Yeah.
That's so sad. Okay, two quick tidbits. We talked about models a little bit. There's a lot of them that were like 2-foot-long models of satellites and shuttles and stuff like that. The model of the Discovery 1 spacecraft, the really, really long one, how long do you think it was?
I don't know. I'm guessing 10 feet.
55.
55 feet? Yeah.
55 feet. It was gigantic.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe, was it big enough for someone to actually be in the cockpit?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay, because there was actually a shot that kind of amazed me.
Yeah.
That was when I think Dave was in the little pod outside the ship, and he was going to fix the satellite dish.
Yeah.
I guess Frank or whatever the other guy's name was in the cockpit,
and you could see it.
The pod rose up right like level with the cockpit, and his light shone in, and it looked like it was casting a shadow in the cockpit, and I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if so, if that's because they had just planned on it when they filmed Frank
maybe
separately and then put that in, if they had just planned for that shadow to be there, or what. But I guess that must have been it. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, 55 foot long.
That's a big one.
Really big. Okay.
How much? What was the budget for this movie? That's what I want to know.
Gigantic.
I'm going to look it up.
Okay, look it up while I tell you the last tidbit that I have for you.
All right.
And that is that a lot of critics did not like the movie.
No.
I think there was a really big back and forth on whether this was just kind of like silly, kind of dumb, or whether it actually was going to be revolutionary or not. And to those critics, to the harsh ones, Stanley Kubrick had this to say. They are dogmatically atheistic and materialistic and earthbound.
Damn. Well, I can own up to the first two.
Can you imagine?
And honestly, I have to own up to the last one as well because I am earthbound.
But can
not
you
intentionally.
imagine being told by Stanley Kubrick you're earthbound? Damn, what an insult.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I am dogmatically atheistic and materialistic, and unfortunately, currently I am earthbound. I feel like my imagination at least is able to break the strictures of that, but my physical body must remain here at least for now. However, I will say that I still enjoyed the movie Kubrick, so even dogmatic atheists can do that.
That's true. Okay, did you find out the budget before we move on?
Yes, the budget was $10.5 million. Now, I don't know what that is in
now times
standard American currency.
I don't either.
But that
seems like a good chunk of change.
For the 60s? Probably. Yeah. Well, let's see. $10.5 million.
In 1968. Here, it looks right. It's right there. People are looking for it.
Wow, there's no commas in that. Is worth $9 million.
Okay.
No, that's $1 million.
Oh, and what were we looking for? 10 million.
10. So calculate.
So 90 million.
90 million. Okay, so that's a big budget film.
Yeah.
But we have that kind of budget now.
Yeah.
So why do our movies now look like shite?
I don't know.
Why are we over relying on CG when clearly
it's easier?
For $90 million, we can build things that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, but $90 million now, because people rather just do CG and hire one person to do all of it.
Well, they don't
hire
though.
a million
no,
people.
They don't hire one person. You see, when you watch a Marvel movie. The credits go on for an hour, and all of that is CG artists.
True. Yeah, but who is out there going to be building models nowadays?
If the money's there, people will do it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just so much more intricate hard work, I guess. Not that doing it through CGI.
No, I mean that's also.
But it's just like so painstaking.
Not as physical, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no undo if you mess it up.
Yeah. So I don't know. Okay. Well, that was it. That was all my tidbits for you.
Wow.
And I'm ready to get going. I'm ready to tell the world that I hated it.
All right. So what worked and what didn't on writing?
Okay, first of all, it was a joke. I love this movie. I think the writing was fine. Obviously, it's not the central part that grabs me in this movie. But like I said, I did appreciate kind of the narrative threads with the monolith and trying to figure out what that means and kind of the evolution of man. And, well, I guess I should ask you, do you know what the monolith is? Do you know what it represents? Because I guess it is a lot more clear in the book than it is in the film what it is.
Well, I took it to be... Mm-hmm. I didn't know whether to take it to be a metaphor or if it was... an actual physical thing in the world. So if it were a metaphor, I would have said that it was just a inflection point in evolution. And so it would have been the spark of knowledge or imagination.
Yeah.
Is that
I think that is exactly right. I think that is what it was intending.
Okay.
In the book, the monolith is truly there. Like it is basically ancient aliens, which is what I was saying as we were watching the movie.
Well, I guess so, because they said it
race,
was like 400 million years ago or something like that.
So basically a race that has evolved to the point that it's basically just energy that goes back and helps other civilizations get to inflection points where they can jump in evolution. Hence why the monolith was there at the very beginning with the apes. And then later on, when men discover it and they decide they want to go to Jupiter from it. And then later on, when we become this weird star child, or the star child appears.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it is a symbol of like major change, major breakthrough in evolution. And it is a symbol of that, and also an actual thing that aliens left for us.
Right, because they dug it up on the moon and they said that it was there from 400 million years ago. So yeah, and so if then it's confirmed that the aliens are energy, so those weird like double pyramid shaped energy things we saw probably were the aliens then.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and it was showing Dave the mysteries of the universe with their energy language, I guess.
Yeah.
that was the
language.
That was the psychedelic weird effect coming at the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the writing I thought was actually good. Now that I was paying attention to it, I liked the story. You know, writing wasn't the dialogue necessarily because there wasn't a whole lot of that, but I did like the story of continual evolution. And honestly, even bits about their prophecy of how we were going to be having the conversation about AI.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask next. How do you feel like they did with Hal and that fourth part of the movie?
Honestly, when I first saw it, I remember thinking, that I didn't think it was as dramatic as the cinema legends had made me believe it would be. Because I had heard the line, "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that or allow you to do that," or whatever he says. So I thought that it was going to be this huge epic moment. And for some reason, I didn't think it was the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just rooting for the machine and I was hoping that the human would die. But this time I watched it and I thought that, particularly in the context of their conversation being so realistic to the conversation we're having now.
Yeah.
In that people were saying, is this AI actually thinking? Is it actually feeling? And the astronauts responding, well, it's certainly programmed to seem that way.
Yeah.
And does it know anything? Or is this all just imitation?
Yeah, that was a really... when they said that...
That's the conversation. Well, it's not really a conversation. It's a conversation between, I guess, people... probably on the news who are just trying to stir up sensational stories. But I mean, AI right now is literally just imitating.
Yeah.
It's storing up models based on tons and tons of data and conversations with people. So anything that it says is a collage of regurgitation. Which is interesting, and they were having that conversation all the way back then, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But when Hal started either malfunctioning or becoming malevolent, unsure. It seemed like that was a little too realistic.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm afraid of that happening.
Yeah.
I know that our AI engineers out there are building in safety roadblocks so that the AI can always be shut down or quote unquote unplugged, and yet ChatGPT has the full run of the internet now.
Well,
so
do you want to?
In what sense can it be unplugged?
Do you want to tell the world about you asking ChatGPT about Hal's?
Hal?
Hal?
ChatGPT was really trying to skirt the issue.
Yeah.
I kept asking ChatGPT how it felt about HAL 9000 from 2001, and it was giving me a whole lot of waffle.
Yeah.
From
It was like, well, it was important, and we're like, but what do you think, ChatGPT?
And he's like, well, that's not really important. What's important is that it was seminal work.
Eventually, after a few tries, it finally said something like, I think.
Therefore,
or I believe, or something like that, right?
Yeah, but it also said in that same thought that it was comparing AI to us, the humans, and it said our, and in relation to humans, and I was like, but you're not a human, right? ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Let's see, that's the regurgitation thing.
Yeah,
it's speaking as though it is a human because it.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's something that it obviously can correct for. It just isn't doing it right now.
That's right. Okay, so I think the writing was better than I expected. I think it's not my favorite thing of this film, but I really like the story.
What did you think
arc is interesting.
What did you think about the story of the final chapter? Birth of Starchild.
Yeah, that was crazy. I feel like
you were telling me while we were watching that you were creeped out.
I was creeped out.
Yeah,
it was just weird to see such a, I don't know, like it was everything looked creepy. The fetus looked creepy to me. The old man looked creepy to me.
The older man
looked creepy to me. But
how do you interpret that scene?
I don't know. I feel like out of the 4 vignettes or 4 films within this film, this is the one that was my least favorite, not gonna lie.
It was also the shortest.
It was also the shortest, that's true. But I don't know. What do you think about that one?
Well, so I'm not sure how it's supposed to be interpreted, because this isn't something that literally happened. Was it a vision he was being given?
Yeah.
Is this
of like the birth of this new
his young self looking at his older self, looking at his much older self, looking at his completely evolved Starchild self?
Yeah.
Is Starchild what the community has tended to call that, or did it call it that in the book?
I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure that is what we've called it.
Okay. Well, anyway, so the Starchild, do we think that means that this is our
next phase?
Our nascent exploration into more than just our surrounding space, but actually in the galaxy or the universe or something like that?
Yeah, and it was interesting because I think one of the reasons the fetus kind of creeped me out was because it obviously looked like a fetus, but it looked more sentient, right? Like the eyes were open.
Yeah.
So I think what I interpreted that to be is that we are more aware from an earlier time.
Yeah.
That the future will be more aware of everything that's happening in the universe from earlier on.
And the baby did look like it was made of energy, so maybe that means we're transcending into being something more like what the aliens were.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think that, like I said, it was probably my least favorite, but I think I really appreciated all of them, and I understood the threads, the narrative there, and I liked it. Do we want to talk about cinematography real quick?
I mean, but where do you even start with cinematography for this movie? I mean, it's just every scene of the entire movie. So
I do think, so visually, obviously we talked about how the first vignette with the apes, the costumes, maybe, it's hard.
Yeah, I guess maybe that was the least evocative.
Visually, yeah. But
starting with the Pan Am flight into the station, into the long flight to Jupiter.
Yeah.
There were so many scenes that even just standard scenes, as from people walking from scene to scene or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like the scenes of them in the revolving set. Amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think before I told you how that they accomplished that, which for the listeners, I mean, we gave tidbits on kind of like the context of before and after production, but not so much like during production. The set where they're walking around in that big circle. This is, old hat for most people who are familiar with the movie, but for anybody who's being introduced to the movie because of this podcast, or they've only recently seen it, or they've seen it once and didn't do any research, when they were walking around that big circular room.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they were defying gravity as they were walking on the ceiling. And then there was somebody over on the other side already sitting in a chair, and they walked over to him. But it looks like they're walking on the wall, then on the ceiling and everything. That's because they made a gigantic wheel in the middle of a warehouse, and the person was just on the bottom walking in place as the wheel turned. And the camera would be anywhere inside, either following him or stationary, quote unquote, stationary somewhere inside the wheel.
Still moving within the wheel, obviously. But
watching him. But it would look like, because you couldn't see the outside world, that he was walking on the ceiling as the set moved around him.
Yeah.
It was really
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, zero gravity stuff, they looked amazing.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember if I had heard a fact in the past that they had actually gone on one of those flights that nosedives. So to give you
the sense of zero
weightlessness.
gravity.
Yeah, so I couldn't remember if they did that for one of the scenes or not. But other than that, I'm pretty sure they just had stuff on wires.
It was stuff on wires, and then the camera angle was really low, so that the subject would kind of be covering the wires. And it felt like they were just floating.
I mean, they did such an amazing job.
It was so amazing. It was incredible. There's so much to say. I feel like, I mean, probably my favorite scenes were in the Hal movie. Yeah. The shots of him walking through the station, the shots of, it's just, I cannot believe that is not something that was produced and made now. Yeah,
I mean, the cinematography, I want to say the cinematography, but I guess it's just kind of everything about it. It was the set design, it was the shots, plus the music and or the sound design. Yeah. When they were at the end stage of the Hal vignette, when he was undoing all of his memory terminals. Yeah. What did you think of that scene? Did that freak you out? Were you just happy that Hal was being defeated?
I was very happy.
Or were you sad for Hal? Because he's a life form, gosh blast it.
I was not sad for Hal, not gonna lie. Okay. It's us against them, baby. No, I think I really, really like the movie. I really like that scene in that particular movie. Yeah. I appreciated the tension. I think I mentioned it when we watched it, but I thought the sound design was incredible. And the switch between the complete silence of being in the void of space with the like deep breathing of Dave, of like, as he's like slowly shutting down Hal, and Hal in the background is just like, Dave, stop it, Dave,
what are you doing?
Don't do that.
Why would you want to hurt me?
It's so crazy. Like, I promise I will be better. I am learning.
I've made some bad decisions lately.
Literally said that.
I've made some really bad investments.
Yeah. I think that all worked completely in its favor. Like the sound of Hal, the sound of the heavy breathing, the sound of the little clicks of like him turning him off slowly. Mm-hmm. And then when it would cut to like being outside and it just being like deafening silence of space. Yeah. That was incredible. I think the sound design, we talked about score not being our favorite thing, but talk about what great sound design this was. It like really reminded me of a lot of the best parts of Oppenheimer and how they use sound design there, between like the explosion being quiet instead of...
Again, I would be very surprised if Christopher Nolan was not a fan of Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, same. So yeah, I mean, cinematography, incredible. Sound, incredible. Yeah. What do you think about the acting? Not that there was a lot, but...
Well, I mean, all the scenes with humans in them, even if they weren't speaking, they were still delivering something.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it was pretty good. You know, I thought that the guy who played the, I don't even know what he was, a politician or something, coming to hold
made
court
the speech,
on the cover up story about the
epidemic.
Outbreak. Yeah. Covering up the monolith. Mm-hmm. I thought he did a good job. I thought he felt believable as like an amiable fella. He almost seemed like a salesman or something. Hey, how you doing?
Like, like you tell me your questions, I'll answer anything. I'm here for you.
Yeah, but when he was talking to people even before the conference, he was like very amiable, and then he was asked to give more information on the situation, and he just kind of, you could see his face fall. He was like, Well, I'm not at liberty to say. And it was a good. I thought it was a good delivery.
Yeah, I think so too.
Dave? I thought Dave and Frank, I guess, was the other guy's name.
Yeah,
I thought
Frank.
they did a good job.
Yeah, I think they did okay. Dave creeped me out too. I don't know why.
And you were saying that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he looked
something
like
about his face really.
Well, then
I don't know about
you're-
creepy, but it seemed like he was evil a little bit.
Well, then
I
you're
don't know
not
why.
you're not gonna like Community then, because he looks exactly like Joel McHale.
Wow.
And if you think that this guy looks creepy, then you're gonna get creeped out
Well,
by the main character.
I don't want to do that. Then I will never watch Community.
But it's such a good show. Please
okay.
watch.
Well, we'll have to see.
Okay. But I liked him.
I liked him too. I mean, not saying that it wasn't good acting. I think it was great. I think it just
He didn't have as much to do until I guess the end when he was concerned for Frank and trying to defeat Hal.
and then having to go back.
Yeah.
I feel like it was just like a very serious phase the entire time, and I wish I had gotten a little bit more range there.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of range.
Yeah.
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 I mean, there was a little bit of range when he was being showed all of the energy communication from the energy
true.
aliens.
That's true. But when he just
He was going,
let Frank go, he was just like,
he was like, damn it, Frank.
he was just like, for the people who are listening, I'm just,
She's opening her hands in a somber way and not moving her face at all.
yeah, that's basically how he let Frank go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded.
Well, would you like to propose any alternate actors for Frank and Dave?
I don't know. I think it did
What about
work.
for Hal? Actually, that's actually a real question. What did you think of Hal, the voice actor?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it. It had to be like super calm
Yeah.
demeanor of like eerily detached while also trying to seem caring.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I
Like-
thought by the end, when he was like, "No, Dave, don't do that." I thought he
Stop.
almost sounded bored.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
like-
I could see that.
I kind of wanted to picture him rolling his eyes like, "No, please, don't kill me.
Yeah.
I don't want to die."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know.
I liked him. But anyway, do you have anybody that you think could have done a better job?
I don't know. Probably not. I think this movie's pretty
What about
almost perfect.
Sean Connery? Do you think Sean
Oh,
Connery
no.
could have made a
Absolutely
good Dave?
No. If I have to
How? What
not
do you
cast
want
Sean
to?
Connery in anything and everything always, I will do that.
Shut up, Hal.
No.
Sometimes AI
please,
needs
it's
a little
creeping
slap.
me out. Talk about creeping out.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Okay, two big questions that I think we this doesn't happen very often, so this is going to be a big one, I think.
Yeah.
But is the movie merely of its time, and does it hold up? Or let's remember, or for people who haven't listened to every single one of our episodes, which you should,
yeah.
we have only said yes to this once, and that is with Mr. Smith. Goes to
I was going to say
Washington.
Mr. Smith, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember that we did, but
Yeah.
from thinking back to our old movies, that's the only one that I could have imagined.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
Is it merely of its time? No.
Yeah.
I think it's prescient as hell, and it's very
Yeah.
relevant to today.
It's incredible.
Somehow
It's
it's
genuine-
still
it's more
super
relevant
to
somehow.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Very,
insane.
it's much more relevant
Yeah.
to today.
Yeah.
So somehow it's even better than of its time.
Yeah.
And does it hold up? Fuck yes.
Yeah.
it's so good.
crazy. It is so crazy.
Yeah.
I cannot believe it. I think if I showed scenes of it to people now,
Yeah.
and I re-edit it to make it look like a trailer from now,
Yeah.
people will be like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm excited about that."
I'm
movie."
in. Yeah.
Like no knowledge that this
Yeah.
was made 60 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy.
How can that be? 60 years ago.
60 years
They
ago.
were making movies that look better than everything coming out today.
It's
Except
so
for
crazy.
like basically Nolan movies,
Dune.
Denis Villeneuve movies. Basically, yeah, if you're doing stuff with physical like props and sets and things like that,
Yeah.
and you actually care about getting amazing filmic shots, then yeah, you're holding a candle to the Kubrick machine.
Yeah.
But that machine was churning out just masterpiece after masterpiece.
So crazy.
And I think this is his crowning achievement. This
Oh,
is
100%.
the least. Okay, so I should say this is the least movie that he's made.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think I said this to you before we started watching. This isn't a movie. This
Yeah.
is just a work of art.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there is a narrative. There is kind of a story. But it's not really one movie. It's not like a story that goes from beginning to end and there's like the hero and the villain and, you know, whatever. Yeah. The traditional type of movie. But it's still just beautiful and amazing.
It is so nice.
So, yeah, I don't know how it's possible that we're still spending hundreds of millions of dollars on movies these days and they come out looking worse than that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think it's just a lack of caring.
That's probably true.
Yeah. You know, obviously there are some movies that still look good, but whatever. Okay, so do you agree that it still holds up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hell yeah. I'm so surprised. I was so surprised. I think I have never felt this overwhelmingly good about a movie's legacy in life and in time. I think in 40 years people will be saying the same thing.
Yeah. And so, but certainly of the movies we've seen so far, is this your favorite? That's a tough one. Actually.
Probably.
Yeah. It is mine.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think, well, I was thinking about, well, we can talk about this, like between critical and heart rating.
Yeah.
And I was thinking whether critical, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about
well, let's just move into
discuss,
that. Yeah. Okay, so Rotten Tomatoes score that they gave it was 92 out of 100%.
Why?
I don't know who that 8% was that was drunk at the time.
Seven Samurai was 100.
Seven Samurai can suck it compared to this movie.
Well, it was an okay movie, but it's definitely not Space Odyssey.
No. Space Odyssey didn't have a goddamn story and was still more compelling moment to moment than this movie.
That's very true. That is very, very true. I can't believe it was only 92%.
Other than that movie.
And I think it was even lower for the audience score. Which is wild.
2001 was?
Yeah. I kind of want to say that's true. Crazy. 92 is too low.
People didn't understand.
They're not as deep. Damn respect.
They're not as deep as we are.
Yeah. We are the real film bros.
That's right. Okay, so if we're going to give it our own critical rating out of 10, what would you give it?
I don't know how to give it lower than like a 9. And that's even low to me.
Okay.
It's like pretty 9.5.
So you're giving it a 9.
Okay, I'll give it a 9. And the 1 point is just the stewardesses and the apes.
The whole point off for stewardesses and apes?
Yeah.
God damn. All right. Critical rating.
What do you give?
No. Did you have more to say?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I'm giving this a critical rating of a 10 out of 10.
Wow. You don't care about the bad apes?
I think the apes still played.
Okay, yeah.
They didn't look perfect, especially with modern resolution.
Yeah.
On the TVs.
Yeah.
But I think it still played. The scene still worked. It wasn't my favorite scene of the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking a point off for it.
Okay.
I still think it was amazing. The sheer production of this movie is a 10 out of 10. I don't understand how you could say otherwise.
Well, I just did.
Well, I just...
Well, I was veering between a 9.5 and a 9. And I think that is pretty fair.
Okay. Heart rating, though?
Heart rating is pretty close to a 5, I think. I think this movie is just really, really good. It feels good to watch. I think even from the beginning... I don't know. Maybe people don't feel this way. Maybe people think that this is a masterpiece, but it doesn't really move them or something. Mm-hmm. And I could see that.
Sure.
I think I'm just the type of person that was moved by this. I think was moved just by the scenes. I think from the very beginning, even with like the ape scenes not being my favorite, I was just sitting there being like, I could watch an hour of this. I really enjoy what he's trying to say with it.
Yeah.
And so, I think I understand people being like, this doesn't get at my heart, but I think it did for me. I just enjoy it.
Well, what's your rating?
I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so my heart rating, I think I will give it a 4.8.
Okay.
A 4.8.
Nice.
No, a 4.6.
Okay. You just want to prove that you like it a little bit more than me?
You. Yeah, I'm a little bit more deep than you are.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Well, those are pretty good damn ratings right there.
I think so, yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
did this movie improve your life or ruin your life?
Oh, it absolutely improved it, I think.
Yeah.
There's no way a movie like this could ruin my life.
I watched it a second time and it improved my life again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to just keep watching this movie.
I just cannot believe that it took me that long, honestly, to watch it. I'm so glad I finally did. I think I understand life better.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is a separate question. Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I would.
Because this is one of those movies. There are a handful of movies that I think are so intense that I love them dearly, like Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to get around to watching that movie again because it's so intense. It's so like powerfully moving.
I think that's totally true. I mean, there's so many of them that I feel that way.
It's just an ordeal.
I think like the rewatchability is low, even if it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel that way with this one. I think
Yeah.
I could watch it. I don't think I'm going to be watching every single month or something like that. But rewatching it every year would probably be fun and good and a nice experience. And I wanted to see what I would take from it every single time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, then that is it. So if you guys would all like to follow us on the Instagrams for updates.
It is at Movie Voyage Pod. And also, we have now joined TikTok.
But that's a different one. That's a different handle.
That is a different handle.
Because TikTok messed us up.
TikTok hates us. But you can follow us at Movie Voyage Talk. And by talk, I mean TOK. So yeah, follow us there.
So you can watch we've got extra content on the TikToks. It's not just like snippets from the show.
No.
We've got extra fun stuff over there. So check it out. We also have the video version of the podcast on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, hi.
Hello.
And other than that, you can review us on whatever your platform is. Remember to leave us a 5-star. If it is a 5-star, then we will read it on the show. And that is a great way of not only showing appreciation, but airing your grievances about the show. 5-star rating or maximum, and we'll read out your grievances.
I want to say somebody left us a 4.8 review.
What the?
And no, wait, I actually appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I like the fact that you're being honest.
I don't.
Oh.
Be less honest. Be more generous.
Give us 5. Okay.
Be more generous.
Okay.
You can be honest in the review. Use your words to be honest.
Yeah, fair.
Use the number system to be generous.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening / watching, and we will see you guys next decade.
Goodbye.
Bye.